Oh, thank you. I'm meeting with St. Vincent's
Good
next week.
afternoon.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thank you.
much for joining us for Crossroads. I'm Connie Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. Have been proud and privileged to serve in that capacity for 21 years. And I only say that because I want folks to understand the longevity of this organization. It's been around for 27 years doing good work in Iowa, across Iowa, and a variety of issues, social justice issues, and always working collaboratively with many, many partners across our state. And it is good work, and we know that our state is struggling right now. And but I want you to know that there are good organizations and good partners doing work in the state to make sure that rights are protected and that we can continue to have a progressive community in the state doing that work, whether it's at the state house or in communities. So one of our newest partners is Reform Alliance, and it is a national organization, but Kameron Middlebrooks has been part of the Iowa landscape for many years, and and he is passionate about social justice issues and is a agent of change. He is the state organizer in Iowa for Reform Alliance, an organization focused on reforming the probation, parole, and supervised release systems. He began his life of serving as a youth representative to the NAACP National Board of Directors in 2008. At the age of 24, just, a year ago, right?
Right.
Cam was the Midwestern Regional Field Director of the NAACP, the youngest to ever serve in that position. As a regional director, he organized a voter registration campaign that registered over 15,000 people of color across the Midwest and participated in talks with the governor of Iowa to streamline the process for felons to regain their right to vote. Cam has worked in several other organizations, including Evelyn K. Davis, Iowa Extension and Outreach Office, Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, and as the political director of the Deidre DeGier campaign for governor. He also served on the Des Moines Civil and Human Rights Commission for 5 years as the chair. And today we're going to talk about the work of Reform Alliance and what happens in our system of justice, so to speak. Yeah. And what happens after, and making sure that people have the ability to be successful in our community. So I'm going to turn it over to Kameron Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Connie. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, Plymouth, y'all can do better than that. Good afternoon, Plymouth. Good afternoon, Interfaith. There we go. There we go. I like the energy, y'all. So Connie did a great job, almost somewhat embarrassing job for me of telling you about my history. But I'm an Iowa boy. I like to say Iowa native, even though I wasn't born in Iowa. Quick story. So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, right? I was born in Georgia. At some point in time, my mother and her older sister and older brother, who were born here in Des Moines, moved to Atlanta because they wanted to get away from the winters, right? Just like a lot of people. At about 3 years old, my grandfather had a series of strokes and passed away. So my mom, being the youngest, most transient, she decided to move back to Iowa and take care of her mother. Unbeknownst to me, because we moved back in October, which is my birthday, on Halloween, matter of fact. So I thought we were coming back just to spend my birthday here, right? To celebrate my birthday with family I've never been with. So that was a fun time, right? We stayed to Christmas. I got to see my first white Christmas, got to see snow for the first time. I'm used to the red clay. That was nice. Then January hit. There was still snow on the ground. So Ms. Joyce, I asked my mom, I said, when are we going home? She looked me dead in my eyes and said, son, we are home. So Iowa's been home ever since. I've learned to love it. I learned to enjoy it. The winters, like most people, we bear with it. But I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose, and I believe in that. So as Connie said, my history really started with the NAACP, issue-based organizing. Played a little bit on the partisan side of politics, but really excited to get back to an organization like Reform, where I can get back to issue-based work. The NAACP taught me at a very early age a mantra that I still live by today. And that mantra is no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent issues. I think when we stand by that and we don't worry about political party or ideology, we can actually get something done. And we've seen a little bit of that with the work that we've done here in Iowa. And I'll talk a little bit more later about the bills that we're running in this state. But let's talk about reform. So what is reform? Who is reform? Now, this crowd, it doesn't seem like the hip hop crowd to me, is it? Anybody know who Meek Mill is? Okay, so I'm going to inform you all. Meek Mill is a multi-millionaire rapper, very famous rapper out of Philadelphia. Meek and myself are roughly the same age. At 18, 19, Meek had a gun charge. It was put on probation at 18, 19 years old. From 18, 19 until 30, 33, he had spent his entire life on some type of supervised probation, under supervision. Now, in about 5 years ago, Meek was in New York on a business trip, probably recording music, doing interviews, I don't know. He decided to have a little bit of fun and ride his motorcycle. He decided to pop a wheelie on his motorcycle. Now, if I popped a wheelie out on the streets in Des Moines and the cops saw me, I might get a citation, probably will get, don't do that. Because Meek was on probation, he was technically violated and sent back to prison for 2 to 4 years. A minor offense, non-violent, barely even criminal offense sent him back to prison. This happens across the country every single day for minor, non-violent offenses that are not criminal. So Meek, multimillionaire, has multi-billionaire friends. Friends like Jay-Z. We all know Jay-Z, right? Well, if you don't know Jay-Z, you know Beyonce's husband, right? Had friends like Jay-Z, had friends like Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. Had friends like Rick Rubin, who at the time was a co-owner of the Philadelphia 76ers and also started Fanatics, which is a sports memorabilia company. Strong ties and strong relationships with these individuals, and they came to Meek's aid and his support and used their influence and their power to get him out of his situation. But Meek and his friends looked at each other and they said, if this can happen to Meek Mill, a multimillionaire influential rapper, what about Mo, Joe, Harry, and Carrie, who don't have the millions of dollars, who don't have the influential friends, who don't know Jay-Z's husband, or excuse me, Beyonce's husband, right? What happens to them? The majority of people in the corrections system are not in prison. Does that make sense to you? The majority of the people in the corrections system are serving their time in the community on probation, parole, or federal supervised release. But what they have to go through every single day is that trap door. If they miss a meeting, if they're 15 minutes late to their PO, and their PO's having a bad day, they can be technically violated and sent to prison. If they need to go out of the county to pick up their kids because their kid goes to a different school district and they get caught, they can be technically violated and sent back to prison. Meek Mill talks about his story. He's from Philadelphia, grew up in a very rough neighborhood, but he became a millionaire. So he sends his kids to private school in New Jersey. Every single day that he goes to pick up his kids from school, he's technically violating his probation and risking going back to prison. This happens every single day across the country. At the time, there was no national-based organization that was focused on the biggest population of people in our correction system until Meek Mill started the Reform Alliance. Our approach is simple. Well, I guess it's not really that simple, Connie, right? I mean, it's politics, right? But our approach is four-phase. Number one, we build coalitions. So when we come into a state, it's not reform coming into the state and telling you all we know best. We have a coalition built up right now of about 40 different organizations, this broad and bipartisan. Folks, I'm talking about on one side of the aisle, I have organizations like American Conservative Union, Faith and Freedom, Americans for Prosperity. Connie, these are organizations that probably 99% of their policy work I don't agree with. That's just my personal politics. But on this, they're aligned. On the other side of the aisle, I have the NAACP, I have Interfaith Alliance, I have AFL-CIO. They are on board with criminal justice reform for several different reasons, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We also want to change the narrative. I can throw all the stats and data at these lawmakers that I want, but that does not change minds and hearts. What does change minds and hearts is stories. Stories of people that are justice impacted, stories of people, of their family members who are impacted by the justice system because their family members are going through this, through a tough time. And then we engage with the private sector. A lot of this has to do with getting people back to work. And we know that there's employers out there that want to do second chance hires. There's employers out there that need to do second chance hires because there's so many vacancies in our communities. And then we want to support the grassroots. Again, this is about coalition building. We just released a National Partners Grant a few weeks ago where we granted out over $1 million across the nation. Iowa alone, we granted about 3 or 4 different organizations like Urban Dreams, Creative Visions, and we were able to give out upwards of $100,000 to support community organizations that are already doing great work, that are already doing direct impact work for communities that we're trying to focus on. So I want to show you guys a quick video. For those who don't know who Meek Mill is, you'll get to see his face on here, okay?
In 2017, Meek Mill was in prison for a technical violation of his probation.
This all started with Meek. He went to prison 4 years ago for the third time in his life for not committing a crime.
It was unjust. It was probably unjust. I got 2 minutes for one of the boys.
I initially thought this was just a crazy situation.
These technical violations can be something as simple as missing a court or probation meeting, failing to pay a fine, and it can land you back in prison.
Probation was actually originally founded to be a pathway back to work and family.
Someone like me grows up in middle America. You don't think you go to prison or jail for not committing a crime. I didn't think it was possible. I wait for it's a traffic ticket. You don't even take points for that. And then it's just one day you go to your phone or something, and he's waiting for you. He's waiting for you in handcuffs. And there's nothing you can do about it.
He had got a really good job because he had picked up a trade while he was incarcerated the last time. They wouldn't make him do the job because where the job was. It was in New Rochelle. He couldn't go out for 5 boroughs. It's like we can't win for losing.
Jeffrey was my oldest son. He was 37 when he passed. He initially got involved in the parole probation system when he was in college. And at the time, we didn't know that he had autism. And we found that out when he was 35. Unfortunately, once he got involved, he remained in the system from age 18 to the day that he died.
You have to attack the systems that are creating the injustices that you see.
Our goal is to move 1 million people off of probation and parole and create real pathways to work, to wealth, and well-being.
We've been able to create a pathway for 650,000 people to come home who are in supervision.
They have passed 16 bills in 10 states.
This does not help people get off the hook. No, help people better their lives.
A law that the Reform Alliance fought for took effect in Florida last month. It allows people to shorten their probation term by getting credits by going to school or working at least 30 hours a week.
This isn't just a one-time transaction. We have spent years building relationships.
We can make America better if we really cure this problem.
And keep families together. That'll be the first start to families building up.
This place cannot be higher. This is an investment in our public safety, our economic well-being, and future generations.
Yeah. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, got to be smarter than the computer. All right, can you guys hear me now? Yeah. Perfect. So, you heard our CEO say we have a goal. Our board has an initiative or goal of getting 1 million people out of the system by the year 2025. We're almost there. We passed 16 bills in 10 states, and created a pathway for 650,000 people to get out of prison already. Now, how we do this, what you're looking at right here is what I call our policy menu, right? When we go into states and we talk to our coalitions, policy menu, and then they look at us and they tell us what issues they really want to focus on. So you'll see in that first section, from incarceration to community. Obviously, again, this is getting people out of the system. So looking at other ways to out of prison and on some type of supervision, or limiting their opportunities on probation. Where we do a lot of our work, though, is in this middle section, from ineffective to smart. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about this on the next slide when I talk to you about the bills that we're running here in Iowa. But clearly, we want to reduce lengths of sentencing, make them shorter, but also supportive when you're talking about interactions with the probation officers in the system. The graduated responses that prevent unnecessary incarceration. So this is limiting the chances of opportunities for technical violations, right? Thirdly, you see rules that match individuals' needs. A lot of times when people go into a system or they're on probation, the terms of their probation is dependent upon the types of crimes that they have, right? So what we're looking at is actually creating rules that actually give folks resources, or policy points that give folks resources to support them on their time on probation. And the restorative justice, at the end of the day, that's what we really want to focus on. But this last bucket, from supervision to wellness, we understand that not only if you're going to get people out of the system, you got to get them on a pathway to be successful and thriving community members, right? So we focus a lot of our work, additionally, on job training, job placement. And I'll talk to you in a few slides about a job fair that we did here in Iowa back in February. But when we look at Iowa, the problem that we see, the first problem that we see is a workforce crisis issue. Iowa has a very unique workforce crisis issue. We have 78,000 jobs that need to be filled yesterday. 32% of our businesses report vacancies, but Iowa still has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. So that means we can't go to the natural markets or the natural employer or employees to fill those gaps. So what Reform's idea is we need to encourage businesses, companies to do second chance hires and finding folks that have background records and getting them involved in their organizations and their companies. You'll see that 5 to 7% of Iowans right now on probation had more than a high school education, according to a recent DOC report. And that's compared to about 30% of Iowans over 25 who have a bachelor's degree. So we see a problem when it comes to education, the skill set needed to be successful in some of these jobs. So when we look at reforming our system, we want to be focused on workforce development, and we also want to be focused on upskilling that citizenry so they can become, when they do return home, they have the opportunity, again, to thrive and create stronger and safer families for their communities. So our solution is an earned credits probation bill. In essence, once somebody is on probation, they're going to be able to earn time off of their term. They're going to be able to earn time off the back end of their term 3 different ways. The first way is what we call our discharge credit. For every single month that they're in compliance with the terms of their probation, whatever that may be, they can earn 14 days off the back end of their term. What we're doing here is incentivizing good behavior and incentivizing compliance. The second opportunity you see is an education credit. So for every educational achievement that they obtain, whether that be high school diploma, GED equivalency, post-secondary, or some type of training or vocational skills training program, they can earn 90 days off for every single achievement. And this is cumulative. The third credit is a workforce credit. So for every 6 months of employment, which in our bill, we write at least 30 hours per week, they can earn 30 days off the back end of their term. Again, we're incentivizing folks upskilling themselves and incentivizing getting back in the workforce, because we know these are 2 key indicators that drive down recidivism. Our goal, again, is not only to get people out of the system, but also get them to wellness and thriving. When we talk about that second portion, right, getting to wellness and getting to thriving, we like to host and invest in our community as well. So back in February of this year, we put on a job fair in partnership with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. That's always funny saying that, in partnership with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. In collaboration with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. How about that? That day, we had over 267 people that registered. 209 people actually attended the day's events. It was down at the Hy-Vee Hall. We had 12 employers on sites, organizations, like people that you would expect, right? Entry-level manufacturing type jobs. But you also had organizations like Farm Bureau Financial, AccuMold, which is a company up in Ankeny that they make medical devices the size of my thumbnail. Where I was amazed or I guess pushed back a little bit was I was surprised that they were here for second chance hires, right? They're not the typical company that I've seen in the previous 5 years that would show up for that. Not a Farm Bureau Financial or not something that's as skilled as AccuMold. But what that tells me is folks are willing and ready to be creative when they're trying to fill their employment needs. And I think we have a great opportunity to fill those needs with these second chance hires. We did some surveys with the folks. 32% of people, job seekers, interviewed for jobs that day. 5% of people, job seekers, got jobs at the job fair. And 57% of seekers said that the resources helped them in their job search moving forward. Because not only did we have employers, we also had community-based organizations like Evelyn K. Davis Center, Iowa Workforce Development, Project Iowa there, because we want to be able to offer them the soft skills trainings that they need as well. As you can see over here in the top right, on the right side, we also offered haircuts. We had beauticians there. We had a men's closet so men can come in and get suited. There was one young man who came in, got right off the bus, came in with a hoodie. Hair was, disheveled, but he just wanted an opportunity. Obviously, he wanted a job, so he showed up. We sent him into that room. By the time he came out, man, hair was done, laid up, barbershop cut, got his brand new suit. His smile was from cheek to cheek. He stayed there all day, even though he talked to everybody. He just wanted to be around that environment. What we're trying to do again is give people an opportunity where they don't feel like they have opportunities. A lot of people in our communities that are on probation, on parole, on some type of supervised release, are feeling really downtrodden. They don't see the opportunities that are out here. There's not a lot of organizations that are working on their behalf. So we got to show them the community-based organizations that are. Oh, sorry, wrong way. So how can you get involved? We want you all to become reformers. Now, you're asking me, how do I become a reformer, right? Very simple. We all got cell phones, right? I want you to pull your cell phone out right now. Pull the cell phones out, go to your text message, and you're going to text reform, REFORM, to 81411. You're going to text reform to 81411. This will get you on our list to become a reformer. So when we do any type of special activations in the state, you'll be updated. When we have social media lives, because I know you all love to hop on Facebook and chit-chat with your best friends and all that, you can get updated on those. When we have action alerts for our policy initiatives, you'll be able to get action alerts for those, okay? It's important for us to build out our base of reformers, because when we go to talk to our legislative, our lawmakers, we want to tell them that we have the backing of hundreds of thousands of Iowans on these types of bills. So a couple things that reformers also get the benefit of. We also want you to spread the word on this. We have an initiative called Better Health. We truly believe mental health is a key component and a key thing that everybody needs, but especially people that are going through situations like folks on probation or parole. So we actually offer 3 months free of online therapy through our Reformer Network. In addition to that, we also do an applied digital skills training. We have a partnership with Grow with Google. We're across the country. We're training just as impacted individuals on Google's platform so they can be better equipped to get that job that they need and that job that they want. And then as Connie mentioned, our coalition, Iowans United for Opportunity. So we really appreciate Interfaith Alliance and other organizations joining this coalition. We are always continually recruiting organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, whether they be reentry groups or workforce development groups, to join this coalition. We cannot do this work alone. We don't dare to do this work alone. We have to do it collectively. As I said, we have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent issues. And we want to get on board with as many organizations that are willing to fight the criminal justice system to make it better for individuals, or even if it's a workforce development side of things that they're really focused on. We believe that this is an opportunity to change the system. So again, we already got you texting 81411, reform. Tell your friends, tell your family. You can follow us on all social medias, because I know all of you guys are probably on TikTok and Twitter too, right? No. But for those who are on social media, @Reform, We want you to share the knowledge you've learned about reform and the knowledge that you learned about criminal justice reform to your friends and family to get them involved as well. And as always, we have to be talking to our lawmakers about these issues. So that bill that I just showed you, we started the process in Iowa about 3 years ago. And over the course of those 3 years, we have had a lot of no's. But in this past cycle, we worked with a few representatives in the House, Representatives Phil Thompson and Representative Steve Holt, and we were able to pass the Iowa House with a very large bipartisan vote of 93-1. In the Senate, we unfortunately did not get a vote on the Senate floor this year, but we did make it through the funnel cycle. So the good news is in the next year's session of 2024, we don't have to start at ground zero with this bill. We just have to focus with the Senate. So during the course of this interim session, we were really focused on building out this coalition of like-minded organizations that are focused on workforce development and focused on criminal justice reform, so we can push the Senate to get this passed next year, and we can positively affect over 55,000 Iowans that will be on probation over the next 5 years, and be able to earn that time off and get back into our communities, create a stronger and safer communities in Iowa. So I appreciate your time, and at this point, are there any questions? Awesome. We'll start right here and then come back here.
Let me bring the microphone
Yep.
to you, and then just catch my eye and I'll come to you next. We want to make sure that we're always using the microphone so that people online can also hear.
I am very impressed with your presentation. I hate to use the word partisanship, but from what you said about your bill and making it through the cycle, and I hate that word also, are you finding that this is a Democrat issue as opposed to a Republican issue?
Good question. So we've had unanimous support from the Democrats on this. On the Republican side of things, I would say we've been careful of how we frame this and message this. A lot of Republicans, right, they want to be seen as being tough on crime, right? So when you present a bill that basically lowers sentencing, right, it's hard for them to get on board with that alone. So we've messaged this and presented this and framed this as a workforce development bill, right? Again, we always go back to those talking points of 79,000 jobs that need to be filled, 32% of businesses that report vacancies. We have a unique problem. This is a creative way to solve that problem. And to my, for lack of better words, glee, some hard right conservatives like Representative Holt, who I think is probably one of the most conservative people in the House, right, has backed this bill and was our floor manager and really led this for us. In addition, we have a lot of grassroots conservative-based organizations that over the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, have made criminal justice reform a focus. And again, I think it's an economic thing for them, knowing that we have so many people that are incarcerated. If they're incarcerated, they're not out in the communities working. Now, that's not why I care about it, but if that's what brings them to the table, that's great. Let's work together on that. But I'd say it's really been bipartisan support on this all the way around, though.
I would remind folks online, you can also ask questions in the chat and we'll get to those.
God bless you for working with Steve Holt. 2 questions, Kim.
Yes.
What are the demographics of parolees in Iowa, and what is the average parole time?
2 good questions. So I do not know the exact numbers on demographics, but right now we have 22,000 people on probation right now in the state of Iowa. Disproportionately people of color, but that all goes back to, I mean, from citation arrest to incarceration, right? Your second question was? Average parole time. Typical parole times are somewhere around 2 years, but you see folks that will get up to 5 years. In some states, in our great union, like the state of Texas, people can be on parole for life.
Have you been able to get any meaningful support from the administration of the Department of Corrections?
That's a great question. Meaningful support. So I will say this: the Fifth Judicial does a pretty good job of discharging people early. The Fifth Judicial District, right? That's Central Iowa, right? I believe there's about 8 different districts, right? The problem is, even in the Fifth, it is not congruent per probation officer. Probation officer A may let this person off for X reason. Probation officer B may let them off for B reason, right? So what this bill attempts to do is create some congruency across the board, not only for the Fifth, but across the entire state. What we have gotten from the DOC is, I wouldn't say they're all the way supportive. They did, so for folks, I mean, this is kind of getting into the minutia of how the sausage is made, right? But when you run a bill, you get a fiscal note, which basically tells you how much this potentially could cost, right? As I said, we worked in the state of Iowa for 3 years. In the previous 2 cycles, we threw the entire policy menu at the legislature, right? And clearly that didn't work out. But in that, we still had this earned credits probation component. And in the previous fiscal notes, the cost was relatively low. This year, because I think the DOC wasn't really too excited about it, the information that they gave increased that fiscal note to like $5 million, right? Which doesn't make sense to me, because if people are getting off early, how does it cost more? But we were able to defeat that, obviously, clearly in the House. And obviously, we use a lot of our conservative partners that are fiscally conservative, to push back on that fiscal note to help us push the bill through. Got one right here.
Go ahead and raise your hand ahead of time and I'll come to you next.
Can you tell us the bill number or name?
Yes, House File 349. House File 349 is Earned Credits Probation Bill.
Thank you.
Where are we now on ban the box kinds of things? Is that still going on?
So, yeah, so for folks who don't know what ban the box is, it's an initiative that basically, banning the box means they don't want to ask for if you're a felon on your job application, right? Ban the box by itself, and this is just my personal opinion, does not work. If it's just ban the box, and that's the only policy measure that you're going to do. The reason being, people will find a different way to bias you out of the system. What folks and organizations need to be doing is fair chance hiring practices, right? This goes a little bit deeper. So yes, you ban the box, but a lot of jobs, at some point, you do have to ask that question about the background. With fair chance hiring practices is you just wait to ask that question. You take that person or that individual through the entire hiring process. Once you think you want to hire that person, right, it's a conditional offer on the table, then you ask the question about the background check. But at this time, you build up a rapport with this individual, and you can have a conversation about what that charge is, versus just banning the box at the top end and then disregarding that person for whatever other reason, right? Honestly, people are talking about it. One Democratic senator wanted to attach it to this bill. We told him no, because we knew if that was attached, it wouldn't get through with the Republicans. But regardless of ban the box legislation, organizations just need to start practicing fair hiring practices. And I think that's a much different conversation and a lot more education and information that they need on that.
With the, whoops, what am I doing? Okay, with the reorganization of state government and the 8 districts, the local parole boards, et cetera, having less control, what effect will that have on?
Good question. So obviously we know that the entire state, right, is reorganizing. So community-based corrections, right, where your probation officers are, will be folded under the Department of Corrections, right? So the question is, will that have an effect on this bill? The answer is no. Yep, it's all we're asking our probation officers to do differently is to make sure that they're tracking these credits. but a lot of them already do, right? When you're on probation, they ask you where you work, they ask you what education you have, right? We're just asking them to put it into a system. So there will be a fee. So they use a system called the ICON system. There will be an upfront fee for them to create some tracking metrics in there. And then we're just asking them to do their job and put it in there.
I have a question.
Yes.
We know that voting helps people to be more engaged, civic engagement, those kind of things, and helps people to be more successful post being in prison and probation. Iowa still doesn't have that as a fundamental right for people with felons. Is there any possibility that Reform Alliance will take on that issue and help to move that forward beyond the executive order?
So that's a really great question. Put me on the spot there, Connie.
Sorry.
I personally have history with that, right? You heard in my resume that Connie read, working with the governor's office to streamline that process. I don't foresee reform doing that right now. We want to be focused on just the probation, parole, and supervised release systems. But that doesn't stop reform from attaching or registering in favor of organizations registering in favor of legislation that does that. Obviously with the coalition, if that's something the coalition brought up and the coalition really wanted to work on and really push, we would support that effort, but reform wouldn't necessarily take the lead on it.
Thank you.
But personally, I'm all for it.
How much of the problems you run into are related to private prisons and people making money off of it?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I think it's not just private prisons, right? Because there's a lot of people that make money off of this system, right? Even state prisons, right? Those communities that they're in, like those community members have a stake, like their future is at stake with the prison industrial system. And I think you have some lawmakers who benefit from that as well. So they make decisions based off of that, right? I think we got to continue to make the argument that it's actually cheaper on citizens to get people out. I believe it costs like $30,000 some a year to hold somebody in prison for a year, right? That's a fee on the taxpayer. In addition to that, when you're in prison as the inmate, you got to basically pay rent, right? So when you do get out of the system, I mean, you're in so much of a debt to the system, right? They talk about pay your dues in time, but then after that, I mean, you still got more time to pay, more debt to pay. But I do think individuals that are making money off of this system they're going to fight just as hard to keep it as I'm going to fight to tear it down. Yeah.
How much debt does this person leave prison with? Let's say they stayed a year. How much? I mean, what's the hotel charge?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number per day, but people. Yeah, I can't say the exact number per day, but folks will leave. You got to think the types of fees or types of payments they have will be like restitution if there was a victim to their crime.
Yeah.
Your regular court fines and fees. And then, like you said, the hotel charge, which is, I don't know the exact price on that per day.
Well, considering that the women at Mitchellville make 38 cents an hour and 75% is taken out for restitution, they're not getting very far very fast.
Exactly.
I'm sorry if I missed this part of your presentation, but where do you get your funding?
Awesome. So right now we're actually 70% funded by our board of directors. We are trying to change that. I mean, if anybody that's in the nonprofit space, obviously we got to change that for sustainability reasons. But what I do appreciate about that is these individuals are putting their money where their mouth is. You're talking about people like Jay-Z's on our board, Meek Mill, Robert Kraft, Robert Smith, who is, I believe, the richest African American in the United States. And then a few other, most individuals on our board are either come from an entertainment background, a music background, or a type of influencer background. We are one of the only, in my opinion, this organization was kind of born out of the culture of hip hop, given Meek Mill's presence to it. But he is funding this organization. Like he's not just talking about it. These folks are funding it themselves. Outside of that, I mean, we have sponsorships that we do with corporations. We're building out our strategic sponsorship department. But currently, majority of it is funded by our board.
Any other questions? Oh, we have one online, I think.
We have a comment from someone that the inmates of the Lynn County Jail are billed $60 a day.
$60 a day, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering where we can get a cool shirt like Jim has on.
Oh, so Jim came to the job fair. You know what? So when we do the job fair again, Kristen, I got one with your name on it, okay? Yeah.
For those online, one of our folks, attendees, has one that has the logo on it, so that's awesome.
Oh, Jim, stand up again so they can see you online.
Yeah, cool guys have to have a cool shirt.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other questions from folks? All right, well, help me to thank Kameron Middlebrooks, please.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for all your work in Iowa and for the larger coalition and the work at the national level. Really appreciate it. For everyone in the room, switching gears briefly, how many of you are coming to the annual award celebration? I think I'll be there. Awesome. And if you're online, you can raise your hand as well. If you don't know about it, June 8th, it's our biggest event of the year. It is our annual award celebration. The theme is Voices of Courage, and we are really celebrating not only the work that Interfaith Alliance does and all of the partner organizations that we work with during the legislative session and during the year in our communities, but we are particularly honoring the minority leader in the Iowa House, Representative Jennifer Confrist. She has done amazing work this year and is just a bright star in our state, as well as Keenan Crow, who's the political director at One Iowa, and Damian Thompson, who is the political director and comms person for Iowa Safe Schools. We know that there has been a huge amount of anti-LGBTQ legislation this year, and they are some of our dearest friends and partners, and we want to honor their work. And so I encourage you to be there June 8th. We do need reservations by May 30th, and there are invitations on the table you can take with, or you can go to our website at interfaithallianceiowa.org, and would love to have you in the room to celebrate what we can celebrate and be recommitted to the work as we continue to do this in our state. So thank you for that. Crossroads is always the third Friday of the month. I hope you will join us again in June. And for now, I will just say have a great weekend. Thank you so much.